welcome to today's video, where we're going to be talking about this guy. And he's dead. Yeah, I'm just going to come out and say it. General Argos is not very hard. So that begs the question, why does this video even exist? And it does because, despite the fact that General Argos is not very hard, it took me like 45 minutes when I first got here. And that kind of speaks for itself. The fact of the matter is, if you don't really know what you're doing when you get into here, you could potentially have a hard time. And because it spawns you inside of the fort every time you die to him on your first playthrough, you're probably going to feel like you have no choice but to beat this boss, and if you can't, then you're just going to feel stuck. So that's what we're here to do. We're here to try to help you fight the General Argos boss. Last time around, when we talked about Lord Elias, I talked about his moveset. I made sure to mention that because most of Elias's moves are easily telegraphed and can be reacted to. This time, with Argos, that's not quite the case. There are only a few moves that have nearly enough startup to react to and block or parry, and so because of that, we're only really going to be addressing those moves. Because realistically, you shouldn't even be near Argos to begin with. That's the number one takeaway for this fight. Don't go near him. If you take that advice and click off the video right now, you should be able to win. And no, I'm not joking. The thing is, in his first two phases, Argos severely lacks any sort of ranged moves. He has large AoE moves, yes, but if you're careful, you should be either out of range or able to block or parry those. Because those are the moves that have the long startup. There's two of them. One where he charges a slam over his head and slams it down, knocking you backwards, and another one where he swings his halberd around his head, dealing damage in a 360-degree radius. Both of these have considerable startup and are reactable, because they take up like half the arena. Other than that though, the only ranged move that Argos has is sometimes he'll hit his halberd into the ground and it will send some rocks towards you. If all the rocks hit you, it does like 80 damage, which is a fair bit, but he doesn't use this attack all the time. The point is, if you stay away from him, he's not going to be able to hit you with almost anything. That doesn't mean he isn't going to try to close the gap though, because the other things that you have to look out for are his charging attacks. Argos' charging attacks will see him charging straight at you. No huge surprise there. If he gets close enough to you, he'll start hitting you with M1 strings, and if he hits all of those, it's gonna do a lot of damage. So I think it goes without saying that if he starts hitting you with these attacks, dash out of there ASAP. Even if you try to block all of them, you're still gonna take a lot of damage. So just get out of there. Now, technically Argos has 3 phases, but it's really difficult for me to even tell you what the difference between phase 1 and phase 2 are because they're so similar. He uses pretty much all the same attacks, and that's all you need to know. The same strategy applies. Keep your distance, don't get hit. And on that same vein, make sure that when you do go for your hits, you only throw out 1 or 2 attacks at a time. Now on the topic of attacks, before we go into his final phase, which is hands down the most obnoxious by a country mile, let's talk about attacking the boss. Because unfortunately, Argos can cheat. That's right, nobody is surprised. The AI does not abide by player rules. And what I mean by that is that for whatever reason, Argos is capable of both blocking and parrying your attacks no matter what state he's in. He's charging an attack, so he looks open, jump up into the air, fire 20 orbs of light at him, and he parries every single one of them. Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense, doesn't it? Not only can he parry and block during his attacks, but sometimes the boss can move stack, which Elias was also capable of, but it's a lot more egregious here. What that means is sometimes he'll be actively using a move, and will be able to move or use another move as it's activating. There's nothing you can do to avoid this, and sometimes it can just be devastating and feel like total BS. And that's because it is. If you're far away and he's charging an attack and then all of a sudden charges at you while he's charging the attack, that just flat out sucks. It's something you should be aware of, but again, there's not really anything you can do about it. As for the blocking and parrying, that's where your choice of attacks comes in. From what I could gather, your best bet when it comes to attacking the boss is to not try to use multi-hits. Or at least multi-hits that hit in quick succession. That's because, as we could see from my old clips from the Elias battle, if you just block and then hold your block after getting hit by an attack that hits multiple times, it will auto-parry every move afterwards. That's why when I jump up here and I fire the multi-attack, he parries every single one. If he parries the first one, he'll parry all the ones afterwards. So not only are you putting yourself in harm's way by firing more attacks and putting yourself up in the air stationary for longer, but also if he parries one, he parries all of them. Generally speaking, you should use single hit attacks if you can. This leads us over to the final phase of the boss fight, and nothing else to say about this one other than it sucks and you need to get it over with as fast as you can. After getting the boss to 1/3 health, he's going to drop basically everything that you learned from the last section of the boss fight and get a completely new moveset with a variety of moves that do a boatload of damage. If you get hit by one or two of these, it's gonna chip like 300 or 400 of your health. You really don't want to get hit. The moveset here includes a almost unreactable, seemingly hit scan laser-based attack, a dual blade beam attack identical to the one that you can get for dual swords, a charge attack that, if connected, sometimes will do a grab that will deal an absolute absurd amount of damage, and the one attack that you really want him to do that involves him pulling you in towards himself and then unleashing a flurry of slashes. The third phase of the boss fight is where you need to stay calm, collected, and pay attention to the animations that he's doing before his attacks. As long as you keep your distance, the blade beams, generally speaking, shouldn't hit you. They're pretty slow, and while he can predict you if you're trying to move out of the way of them, as long as you wait until he throws them, you'll be good to go. You'll also want to pay attention because he will do a specific animation before going into the charge. If you've got your distance, you can wait until you see him charging that up, then see him start to unleash it, and that's when you can dodge. As for the pull, this is where you'll get your damage. If you're far enough away and he starts the pull attack, sometimes you can hit him before he even starts doing it. But if you are within his pull, just wait for it to pull you in and then dash out the second that it's available. You're only ever going to take 15 to 30 damage, assuming you did this properly. After that, wait about a second or two, jump into the air, and then hold whatever your strongest attack is. You want to aim directly into the center of where his little explosion is going on. That way, the second it ends, you can throw out your attack and get some damage in. Like I said earlier, this is where you're going to get pretty much all of your damage because it's the one area of the fight where it's not super risky to try to throw out attacks. Anyways, assuming you've played your cards right, you should be able to beat it. As I said, I was pretty embarrassed when I came back here later on a different account, generally knew what I was doing, and beat him on my first go. Not only that, but just to sort of send home the point and prove something, I went back in with my melee-based character who has no points in magic and decided to take him on with one attack that only dealt 29 damage a shot. And as you can see, he killed me anyway because he moved stacked right at the end. But if I can get him this low, doing 29 damage a shot, you can beat him. I know you can. The one last thing that I have to mention is the same thing that went for the Elias fight. If you really want to beat Argos and you're really struggling, bring on someone else, especially if they're a higher level. The fact of the matter is, when you have the ability to do damage to a boss without them even targeting you, regardless of the fact that their health doubles because there's another person fighting them, it just makes life easier. So if you're looking to beat the boss, your best bet is usually to just bring on another person. But you shouldn't have to, because all things considered, Argos isn't that hard. Anyways, that's what I got for you today. I know there's some cheese methods that involve getting him stuck in doorways and using explosion spells and stuff, but you don't even really need that stuff because you can beat him legitimately without too much issue. And regardless, the video idea is to tell you how to fight him, not how to cheese him. So be it. Anyways, that's all I got for today's video. So if you enjoyed the video, you learned something, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. If you didn't, don't do those things. And with all that being said, have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you guys next time.